All right, well, we're recording. Does that mean we're also live? I don't know. Probably.
I have now chatted with Tamahome in 3 different media today.
Today?
Goodreads, Discord, and now Riverside.
3 chats.
3 chats.
Okay.
All 3 chats.
I really got to remember to post about this earlier. I forget every single time that we do this live. Mm-hmm. Like every single time.
Yeah. What are you doing? Raising a human?
You know, putting that sweet little chonker to bed. Chonker. I'm also drinking rosé.
What? I'm not actually anymore, but I was earlier.
I'm almost done with mine, so. Beep, beep, beep.
Beep, beep. I was drinking rosé with Lin Fu.
Get out of town.
I did.
Tamahome says I thought you would smoke stuff. No, I know. I didn't realize until just now that.
I know. We're in California. We have no excuse.
Episode 420, man.
I passed a hydroponics place on the way here.
You probably passed multiple hydroponics places and just didn't know it.
Indeed.
All right. Should we do an episode?
Yeah. This one goes out to Tamahome, who's the only person watching. All right, and 3, 2. Hey everyone, welcome to Sword and Laser. I'm Veronica Belmont. And I'm Tom Merritt.
Sword and Laser is a book club, but it's so much more. We bring you author interviews, news from the world of science fiction and fantasy, and awesome discussions from fans just like you.
Just like you. Like a clone. Like genetically identical to you.
I feel like we've made that joke a few times in the last...
At least twice.
14 years or so.
But I feel like I did a slightly different spin on it.
Yeah, we'll have to go back into... Drake will tell us.
Drake? The singer?
Yeah,
Drake Tenston. Yeah. The better Drake will tell us.
The cooler Drake that listens to all of our back episodes.
Totally.
All right. Well, are you drinking anything? Oh, good. Okay, so we've got 2 people now in the live chat. We've got Tamahome and Mark. Good evening.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, if you get into the live show, you get a bespoke episode.
I know. We talk directly to you as though you were here in the
This
room
one goes
with
out
us.
to Tamahome and Mark.
Hope you're having a groovy night.
Yes, I was drinking rosé today, and I almost didn't.
Why?
But we were meeting a friend for dinner, and the wife ordered rosé, and then the friend ordered Sauvignon Blanc. And I looked at the waiter and was about to order a cab, and I was like, "No, it's kind of hot. I'll go with what the wife had," and had a rosé. I don't remember what kind or anything, but it was a rosé.
I had so as you mentioned in the Discord, it was our my husband and my anniversary last night.
Right, because I married Ryan to you.
To me.
Yeah,
that is
9
correct.
years ago. Yeah.
Good grammar. And we went out to dinner outdoors, and I ordered, I love red wine usually, or rosé. I was in the mood for a red, so I was going to get a Zinfandel. And so we ordered all our food, and then I was like, oh, and I'll have a glass of the Zinfandel. And the waiter looked at me and was like, yeah, you're getting a lot of fish. I really think you should get a white. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, or if you wanted a red, maybe one of these or one of this or that. And like, I know. And I even said to Ryan, like, well, we are getting a lot of fish, so I should get typically you would want something lighter to drink, but I'm just really in the mood for a red. But then I was so like thrown off and kind of embarrassed, and I felt like such a plebe, whatever, that I couldn't like recover in time. So I was like, oh, I'll have Sauvignon Blanc, please.
See, and if I had been you, I probably would have ended up doing the same thing. I probably would have panicked and been like, I don't know. I have to prepare most of my public interactions ahead of time. I'm not prepared for this.
I'm not prepared for pushback on my
But
order.
what I would have liked to believe you would have done is to say, like, that's great that you think that. I'd like a Zin.
To his credit, he brought me out a taste of the Zinfandel afterwards.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
And it was very full-bodied. It was a very intense, and I would have enjoyed it too.
I know that they're right as far as like if you want the perfect pairing, like take a bite of fish, take a swallow of wine, they're absolutely right. But sometimes you just want to be wrong, you know, and have two different
drink
tastes.
what you're gonna drink.
Yeah. It's like I know they don't go together, but they don't clash. I think that's the thing. It's not like you know,
it's not gonna
eating
ruin your fish or your food.
Yeah, like what's an example where you like you definitely don't want to eat something sweet and then eat
like
something sour.
Coffee and ketchup.
Yeah, coffee and ketchup. Nice, good example. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would not enjoy.
There's some more classic examples that are escaping my memory right now. You know, of like, oh, you definitely don't want to eat ice cream after an orange or something. I don't know. Or vice versa, maybe.
Tamahome says Oreos and Coke. I don't know. Doesn't sound like the worst.
Oreos and Coke, I think, are all right.
Wouldn't hate that. I feel like the slight acidity of the Coke would really cut the creaminess of the Oreo.
Yeah, but there's definitely some real classic examples. Usually it's after sweet doing something acidic and sour immediately.
Definitely orange juice after toothpaste is not pleasant.
Oh,
so
that's
what's like
another
the food
good
equivalent
one.
of what would you be eating that's like toothpaste? That you can
a
have
particular
orange juice after.
dessert? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, my long and winding point being that drinking a red wine with fish is not like that. It's not like, ooh, those don't go together, you know? It's just like, oh, they're not perfectly complementary.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my night. So now I'm drinking rosé, and maybe I'll just buy a bottle of Zinfandel and drink it by itself, and then I don't have to worry about it comparing with anything. You should buy a bottle of Zinfandel,
take it by that restaurant, and leave it for that waiter.
No,
from Veronica.
Give him wine.
I'll get back at you. I'll buy you wine.
Buy
it's killing
a nice
with kindness.
bottle of wine. That'll learn you.
Wine shaming.
All right. Well, that was the longest quick what are we drinking I think we've had in a while.
Yeah. It was a full-bodied what are we drinking.
Very full-bodied, delicious, delectable.
Don't have that what are we drinking with your fish, people.
Let's jump into the quick
with your fish people.
Ooh, with your frog people. Huh? Frog.
Tastes like chicken.
Amphibian people. Get the reference?
Yep. Is it time for the quick words?
All right. Ruth says, a book shortage is upon us. If you want to get a physical copy of a book before the end of the year, especially if it's a new release and or a lesser known writer, best to order early to avoid disappointment. So apparently, the publishing industry is facing never-before-seen book shortages, according to Distractify.com. It's happening across the nation, and why? Labor shortages and shipping delays have definitely made the process worse, or the situation worse. That makes sense, but what about, like, is there something happening with is it the shipping time around the, like, production line? Like the stuff that make books possible.
This goes so far beyond publishing. Like
every
blog you read is going to localize this to the industry it covers. The logistics worldwide is a nightmare right now because the pandemic threw the rhythm of shipping way off. We did an interview on Daily Tech News Show with a guy named James Thatcher who works in the logistics industry, and he did a great job explaining it. But the short version is you had a bunch of people get sick at ports in the early part of 2020. You had a bunch of companies decide to cut orders because they didn't think people were going to be buying things in early 2020.
Right.
And then you had a bunch of containers back up because either there weren't people to unload them or it wasn't worth sending them back because the orders were cut off. And then suddenly they realized, oh, wait, everybody's only ordering for delivery. And so they suddenly flooded the logistics channels with orders, and the containers weren't in their normal pattern of being returned to the factory ports in China. Then you had this weird, like, and the best example is the chip shortage for cars, where they like cut all their orders for chips for cars. Those chips those factories started to being used for laptops because everybody needed to work from home. And then suddenly everybody was buying cars faster than everyone expected. Right. And they couldn't get capacity to make the chips. So now it's estimated they made 7.7 million fewer cars this year than they would have normally because of that. And that has expanded. It's not just about cars. It's not just about chips. Everything is a mess because there's labor shortages everywhere. Some of which are because people get sick. Some of which is because people just don't want to go to work right now because they're afraid of getting sick. Some of it is just the entire shutting the world's economy off and turning it back on again has caused, who knew, unforeseen circumstances to ensue that no one could have predicted. So everything is a mess. The word is, if you want to buy something and have it here by the holidays in December, you want to buy it now. Because it's so just going to get worse. And as everybody starts to realize this, suddenly everybody's going to start buying everything, and that's going to make it worse faster.
Yeah, it's I really felt it last year, even with Amazon shipping. But then I feel like it kind of got better for a while. Like I didn't notice it as much, or maybe I wasn't buying like big ticket items. It felt like it kind of evened out. But now
last year,
it's like a
last year you had a lot more people buying things online for their holidays, but you didn't have quite the factory mess yet.
I see.
And so they're saying this year is going to be much worse on the supply chain part of it. Whereas last year was they had inventory, things were built up, so it was more on the logistics side, just getting flooded. Now you've got the entire system messed up, and that seems to be the difference.
Got it.
Anyway, that affects publishing, which affects books. So, Ruth's not wrong. This story's not wrong. It's like this is just one aspect of that entire thing.
All right. Well, good to know. I don't typically buy a lot of Dead Tree editions, but I guess there's just not going to be that many dead trees to go around this year anyway.
Yeah.
So, what it
but
is.
if you go to bookshop.org, you can get some ebooks, you can get audiobooks, and that may be a way around it.
Very cool.
All right, Trike pointed out a BuzzFeed News article about 26 science fiction and fantasy books to read this fall. These are always great. We get them from all over the place. This one includes new books coming from Nnedi Okorafor, Neil Stevenson, Ziran J. Shao, and more. Anything on here catch your eye?
Ooh, a new Naomi Novik. This is the second book in the Scholomance trilogy. So yeah, definitely. I read the first one of these.
Ooh, new Alex E. Harrow too.
Oh yeah.
And
which one is the Alex E. Harrow one?
Alex E. Harrow's Spindle Splintered comes October 5th.
Interesting. Oh, is this a continuation of? No, this is new. Okay, because I'm reading another one of her books right now.
And there's a collection of microfiction from Yoonha Lee coming out October 5th called The Fox's Tower and Other Tales.
Yeah, I'm reading right now Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, which is super good.
I didn't notice this the first time through here. Kim Un-soo, Korean author in translation, a collection called The Cabinet. Might have to check that out.
Always good stuff. Love seeing these like books to read to add to my my TBR.
Dimaline.
Wow. Jan says FIA magazine has announced this year's Ignite Awards winners. Ignite Awards winners. Awards winners.
The winners of the Ignite
Awards.
Awards.
Hard to say. The best novel adult winner is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and the best novel YA winner is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. And you can find all the other winners over at Tor.com.
Yeah, good list of excellent authors and great stories. We also got a note from Mark that a first edition of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, uncut in the original boards, sold at auction for just $1,170,000 at Christie's. Mark says, could it be the Sword and Laser bump that drove the price up because we read it? Obviously, yeah.
We've definitely got some high roller listeners, I'm sure, out there somewhere for sure, ready to throw some money down.
Uncut. It lasted from 1816 to... Oh, this is the 1831. No. Yeah. 1831 edition. Anyway. Crazy.
Very impressive. All right, and Terp Kristen says DragonCon 2021 is over, which means that the winners have been announced for their annual awards. Tom, first of all, were you so sad to not be at DragonCon this year? How did you feel about missing DragonCon? I feel like I've missed the last 3 in a row, so I'm a little bit behind.
We haven't been to DragonCon in years.
Has it been more than 3 years?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how many years?
I think the numbers might have been in single digits last time. No, we've gone to the teens. We went into the mid-teens.
Oh,
yeah.
not single digits as in, okay, you weren't saying like double digits, like it hasn't been like 10 years since we've been.
Yeah, it was the mid-teens when we stopped going, though.
I think the last one I went to was when Justin and Ashley got married, or it was the one where I got the water dumped on me.
Yeah, because we didn't go for a couple of
When was
years.
the ice bucket challenge?
And then I went back for a day. Like I flew in.
Yeah, that's right.
And did a surprise appearance on Night Attack. Like that was like 2017, I think. Even.
Okay,
maybe.
So it's been a minute. Okay, never mind. I take all of that back. But DragonCon did happen in person this year. And so, of course, the winners for the Dragon Awards have been announced. Best Science Fiction Novel went to Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Best Fantasy Novel went to Battleground by Jim Butcher. Best Young Adult Middle Grade Novel went to A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. And there's a number of other ones. Alternate History Novel went to Charles Gannon and Eric Flint. And Best Media Tie-In went to Firefly Generations by Tim LeBon. So yeah, tons of great stuff there. Check it out if you need to add even more books to your TBR. But yeah, I missed it. Felicia went in person, I believe. So there were definitely
we
folks there.
once hosted the Parsec Awards at DragonCon.
I have actually hosted the Parsec Awards twice.
Oh, how nice for you!
Because I did it with Scott Sigler one year, and 1 year with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who I thought my favorite co-host was, but I've been asked back twice.
I presented with one of the Doctor Who's.
Like a real Doctor Who.
Yeah.
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 Was it?
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
Sylvester McCoy and I. I'm not saying who I preferred to present with, but.
That's allowed. You're allowed to say that. You're allowed to have that choice. It's fine. I don't blame you.
And then this is definitely an example of the sword and laser bump. Seth pointed out that Piranesi won the 2021 Women's Prize for Fiction. Obviously, Susanna Clarke deserves this, but, it didn't hurt that we read it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say we didn't make that happen. Anyhow, thank you so much to everyone for submitting quick burns. If you want to help contribute news to the show, you can either post a quick burns over on goodreads.com/swordandlaser or post them over on our Goodreads channel on Discord. All right, folks, now it is time for Bear Your Sword, which is our feedback from the audience. And our first message comes from Raging Evil, good old Jerry Perez, who says, "Oh, dang, about Victories Greater Than Death becoming a series, an adaptation from Amazon Studios, and produced no less by Michael B. Jordan."
I could not be happier that Charlie Jane Anders is killing it. Involved in the writer's room and getting a writer's credit on Y the Last Man, writing a series of award-winning books, and now getting Michael B. Jordan's production company to adapt one of her own works. That's amazing.
Yeah,
so good. And bravo. Well deserved.
I feel like, so I saw her walking down the street like a few weeks ago. God, it was a while back. It was like a few months ago. And I hadn't seen her in a long time. We used to run into each other all the time at Borderlands. And it was one of those moments where like we all had masks on, and she's got bright pink hair, and so like totally recognizable from a distance. And I just felt like I looked real, I was like all like postpartum frumpy and like with my mask on, like waddling down the street. And I was like, and she was on the phone, and I was like,
Oh.
Hey, it's Veronica. And she kind of gave me a look like, I know who you are. and also I'm very busy and I can't talk to you right now. So in my mind, I built up this fiction after I heard this news that like she was on that phone call, like finding out about
with
the
Michael B.
adaptation.
Jordan himself.
Yeah, with Michael B. Jordan.
That's great.
And like didn't have time to like talk to me, but it was cool.
Sorry, Michael B. Jordan's on the phone. Can't talk.
Michael B. Jordan's on the line, can't talk. But yeah, I was super happy. I think this news broke like right after our last episode or something, so we missed it. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, yes, that's so rad. Congratulations. Very excited.
And then Tamahome tweeted the new hit music video about the Murderbot that is sweeping the nation called I'm Not Your Hero, the Murderbot Diaries animatic, set to not the tune of, but the actual song by Tegan and Sarah, I'm Not Your Hero.
Yeah, it's a super good song. And, one thing that threw me, and I forgot to ever mention this or talk about this when we read some of the... We read one of the books, or you read one of the books officially.
We read
for the
Network
show.
Effect with Rob Dunwood. Yeah, it was the...
And I have read the whole series.
Was that the last book before you came back?
I think it was, yeah. And I had already read it. I always saw Murderbot in my mind as being femme presenting. I realized that Murderbot is never gendered in the books,
yep.
Which I didn't catch on to until like the fourth book or something, and realized in my mind that I had been mentally picturing Murderbot as femme presenting. And then I saw this music video and it just reminded me all over again, because Murderbot in the music video is very masculine appearing. And so it was just so funny, like how we like put things on our own imaginations in certain ways. And I thought
there's a little bit,
kind of funny.
There's probably a little bit of projecting yourself into any character,
right.
If you're not told otherwise. Also, Martha Wells being the author, if you're reading it, you're probably assuming like, it's Martha Wells writing. So if I'm not told otherwise, maybe it's a female character. But the audiobook is voiced by a male. So if you're listening to the audiobook, if you're listening to the audiobook, you're probably more likely to think of Murderbot as male presenting or masculine presenting, because you're hearing a male voice
right
when the Murderbot talks. And really, Murderbot is none of those. Murderbot is a sec unit who just wants to watch Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say femme, because that's something very specific, but feminine, like appearing, or gendered. I guess there's no gender.
Yeah,
a sec unit has no gender, I would imagine.
And
but they are made up of human parts, though, right? So they could have, but they could have been made of multiple different human parts.
I don't know if she ever explains where the parts come from. I got the idea that they were grown.
I got the idea that they were people who were like in the army or something like that, who died or were gravely injured.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know where I got that from.
Well, there's never any indication of memories from before
That's true.
Before Murderbot becomes a sec unit. So
that's true. Yeah.
I always assumed that the organic parts were just grown for purpose to fit into
so
the
why do
to the
any
sec
organic
unit.
parts at all?
Because that is explained. There's some aspect of the organic matrix that is advantageous, but I don't remember right now.
Do you like water that is a little bit old tasting?
No.
That kind of like water taste that when a water's been sitting in a water bottle for a little while.
You mean like an aged water?
Like kind of stale water.
Yeah.
I like.
I
that
know what you
taste.
mean. I don't prefer it, but I also don't mind it. Maybe I do prefer it though, because I was about to say like I don't like the way water tastes straight out of the tap sometimes. So I guess that means I do like the aged water. But I don't think about it. I don't
thing.
Yeah. It's like it's too aerated or something. I need it to settle.
That's interesting. That's a thought I've never had before. That's a new thought.
Well, there's two. Yours and mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I know. You come for the sci-fi, but you stay for the thoughts you've never had before.
Stay for the complete non sequiturs. All right, moving over on to Goodreads. We had a thread from, I believe this is going to be from Mark. Yes, it is from Mark, who said, I got a kick out of this article at Tor.com written by Molly Templeton about the shape of books. And I really liked, actually, the first paragraph or so of this article. And it says, if you could identify a book's most perfect form, what would it be? What would it feel like? By form, I don't mean format, whether ebooks or audiobooks or print. I'm talking about the actual shape of a print book, by height and width, the way it fits in your hands, and beyond that, the way it feels in your hands. Does it have that divisive soft touch jacket? The kind that feels ever so slightly like human skin? Is it embossed or dotted with gold foil? Is it hardcover or paperback, large or small, short or thick, or tall and narrow? So I just liked that description, especially of the human skin.
Yeah, I like her identification that she feels like the trade paperback is the perfect form. And my immediate thought is books have been around for a long time. We must have got to the form that seems to work the best. I doubt there's a whole lot of other forms we could try that would be superior after this amount of time. So the three major forms that have survived through the ages are hardback, trade paperback, and pocket-sized paperback. Mm-hmm. Pocket-sized paperback is trading idealism for convenience. It fits in your pocket. It fits in your bag. It always folds back a little too much. You know, it's not perfectly comfortable to read, but that's a trade-off for the ease of storage, right?
See, I think that's the opposite problem. I think it doesn't fold back quite well enough. Like, it's always like
you're saying what I mean, which is like you can open it, but it always kind of wants to close itself, right? It doesn't open up quite well enough.
Yes.
Whereas a hardback opens perfectly. It's the perfect opening because it just flops open. Mm-hmm. But it's heavy.
But you can sit it on your lap really nicely.
You can, yes, yeah.
That's nice.
But it's still heavier. Whereas the trade paperback strikes the compromise between the two. It doesn't have the hard I want to close of a mass market paperback. It isn't quite as heavy as the hardback.
A hardcover book is really difficult to read on your side in bed.
Yeah.
Because you have to prop it up.
To me, the ultimate is the trade paperback with the faux dust jacket flap.
The trade paperback.
Have you ever had that where it's like it's a paperback, but it folds in and has a like a dust jacket flap on the inside? That feels like it gives it just enough heft to feel more like it has that hardback opening, but it's not as heavy.
I like a mid-size, like hardcover that doesn't have the paper folding piece. That doesn't have.
You mean the dust jacket?
Like the cover is just like embossed in the.
Yeah.
Show me an example.
This is well, no, this doesn't have the inside though. It's hardback with the embossed.
Okay, yeah, I don't want the paper.
Yeah. I don't know if I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't know if I have an example right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I do. Like this one.
Because I definitely have had those.
This is my copy of Green Witch, and this has got.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
Well, it doesn't have the flap either, but it's exactly what you're talking
flap.
about.
Yeah.
It just didn't use the flap, basically.
It's textured and like opens really nicely. Yeah.
My calendar fell off the wall.
I'm sorry. All right, we really got off. Went off the long end there, the deep end. Real fast. I know we're catching up on time here. Actually, there's no clock in Riverside.fm, so I can never see how long we've been recording for. So
it's
I
like
have no
baseball
idea.
that way.
Yeah. So other worlds that you love and or hate. This is from Trike. This is a long post, but I thought it was interesting because he mentioned that I mentioned offhand that, I don't like fantasy worlds that have too many parallels to our own. I don't know if I said I don't like them. I said I just prefer things that are a little more out there. Just take the thing out of the freezer. Just take the thing. Just make the noise. Take the thing. You good?
What's going on your end?
Ryan's getting an ice pack for his ankle, and we have like 50,000 ice packs in the freezer, and they're very noisy. He's sorry. It's okay. I just wanted you to be able to be done and get what you need. What was I saying? Oh, so fantasy worlds. So it didn't tick off.
I found my tack for my calendar. It's hung.
Oh, good. So you didn't step on it later. That's important.
Mm-hmm. And Ray doesn't eat it.
That's also important. So Trike says, spinning off Veronica's comment in the latest podcast, episode 417, so this is a little bit older for you readers from the future, about how she doesn't like fantasy worlds, which have too many parallels with our own, causing her to constantly compare the two, which was kind of a surprise to me, Trike, honestly, because that's not a thing that tweaks my annoyometer. It made me wonder what other tropes we like or dislike. So he presumed that I specifically meant secondary world fantasy rather than our world plus magic. So like Dresden Files and Sookie Stackhouse are just our world with fantasy elements. Actually those don't bother me. That's not really what I'm talking about. I think it's more like this second scenario that he's talking about, which is like I mentioned in the podcast, like Jade City, where things are kind of like a mashup, of our existing world. So basically I'm just repeating exactly what I said in the podcast. So where is he going with this? Okay. So he says, I focus on fantasy here because it was Veronica who mentioned it, but of course science fiction does this too. Dune is the Middle East and Lawrence of Arabia. Let's see. I can't pronounce all these places that he's mentioning. These are other books. And these are fake places whose names I don't know how to pronounce. But anyway, Guy Gavriel Kay, according to Chris, does this extremely well. Yeah, that didn't really bother me, the Guy Gavriel Kay bits. Maybe I don't hate it. Maybe I just noticed it too much.
You didn't. You never said
City.
You hated it. You said it distracted you when you were when it felt like there was a comparison and you got distracted trying to figure out what those parallels were. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fair.
Right. Yeah. I think you're
right. I like Jenny's response at the end of this thread. It made her think of a different phenomenon in that she says, I sometimes erroneously assume a fantasy or science fiction world is in our world. The most egregious error on my part was when I read the 5th season. The science was so confusing because I didn't see how our planet could work that way. But it wasn't our planet. It was a periphery moon. Since that time, I've heard several podcasts and read several reviews where people talk about it being a warning about our future Earth, and that was not her intent.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That has definitely happened to me occasionally with other books, expecting it to be our world and then finding out it was not. But speaking of things of our world in potential future scenarios, we will be wrapping up Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman. But first, let's talk about what next month's pick is going to be.
So we're departing from strict science fiction and fantasy, not necessarily for the first time, but I think this might be our farthest straying with a book that you picked for October because you wanted something spooky.
I wanted something a little spooky, so I turned to the Discord and got some recommendations. And oh gosh, now I got to find who recommended this one. Maybe.
Don't worry. It's in the book briefing that I wrote where I quoted everyone. And Tamahome said, I hear Joe Hill's Nosferatu audiobook by Kate Mulgrew is good.
Ooh. And then I picked that.
Yep. And it became our fate.
So yeah, we are going to be reading Nosferatu by Joe Hill. And I started it already, and I have to say it's pretty creepy. I wanted something a little spooky. I know they were making fun of me because I don't like horror movies. I don't typically watch spooky stuff. I think Tamahome in chat was just like, yo. Like, it was me. I was feeling a little brave, feeling like I want something spoopy. So we're going to read this. And it is, Joe Hill for those of you who don't know, is Stephen King's son, and this book feels very Stephen King-ish to me. It feels like almost a love letter to Stephen King's style of writing so far. It's also a TV show as well, which I had no idea. Definitely won't be watching the TV show, especially because Zachary Quinto is the star, and he was so creepy on Heroes that I do not want to ever watch another thing where he is potentially the creepy guy. So, yeah. Does he play Bane in the show?
I don't remember who said this in Discord, but someone was saying that they thought Joe Hill intentionally tried to make this feel like his father more than other books that he's done.
Yeah.
And
it does.
Yeah, it feels like it. We'll give it a proper kickoff in the next episode, but go check it out. NOS4A2 if you're looking for it. NOS4A2. Kind of like a license plate. Remember, usually the book cover jacket shows a license plate with that on it.
All right. So, yeah, good luck reading the spooky book for Halloweeny season. Yay! I love Halloween. It's my favorite. I love this time of year. I love holidays. I can't wait. I'm so excited. All right.
We're going to wrap up Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman now. And we always give a spoiler warning when we wrap up, but we're going to give a very clear and big spoiler warning. Even those of you who sometimes are like, spoiler don't bother me. That's fine. I'll just keep listening. You might not want to if you intend to read this ever. Because as much as I am someone who doesn't, and we'll talk about this a little more in a second, as much as I'm someone who's not that spoiler averse and can still very much enjoy books when I'm spoiled on certain things, I feel like this is one of those exceptions. This is one where you really don't want to be spoiled. Like, it's not that the meaning of the book hinges on it, but it's very much built around you not knowing what's coming. So, with that said, we've given you plenty of warning.
Yeah. So we'll start with this comment from Chris, who wanted to know, does anyone else prefer to go in totally cold? And I think, yes, I went into this totally cold, and I did that intentionally, and we discussed it on the last podcast, how, like, we had both started it, and we both hadn't gotten to it being... No, you had. You had gotten to it being sci-fi, and I had not yet gotten to it being sci-fi. Because you remember when I was making the album art for that last episode, and you were like... Oh, yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
and I was trying to guide you into...
This album art is maybe a little too close to home. And I was like, okay, I'm going to change it because I don't know what that means. I can't tell
you why, but yeah. That's right. That's right. And what Chris is saying is Chris tries to avoid all trailers, advertisements, interviews, and reviews the time.
That's intense.
I don't. I don't always prefer to go in cold. It's fun to go in cold. That used to be the way I saw movies in the 90s. I would just tag along with people who wanted to see a movie, and I didn't keep up on movies, so I would sometimes not have any idea what I was going to see, and that was fun. I don't try to fetishize it, though. I don't feel like, oh, if I know anything about it, now I can't enjoy it. On the other hand, Terra Nullius, I think you should go in totally cold.
Yeah, I think you should go in totally cold. So for me, it doesn't normally bother me. So I'm watching Lucifer right now on Netflix, and I'm loving it. And I'm like on the 3rd season. And I made the mistake of just like looking up one of the actors in the show and got like spoiled on future stuff that's going to happen. And that was annoying just because like I wasn't looking to get spoiled. I just wanted like some information. But normally I'll watch reviews, I'll watch trailers, I'll, do all that stuff. If it says like this is a spoilery review, I probably won't read it. Just because I enjoy like, having some surprises, but I don't necessarily feel like being spoiled will ruin anything.
When Phil in the same thread says, I may be weird, but I love spoilers. I actively search them out. I just like to know stuff and don't get any special extra joy of being surprised. For example, I enjoyed The Sixth Sense and The Fight Club the first time I watched them, but I enjoyed them way more on subsequent viewings when I was looking for certain things. I think we tend to fetishize surprise and feel like, well, if I'm not surprised, that's all this work had to offer me.
Yeah.
And
Like,
I
why
love
did
what
I even
Phil
bother?
says, whereas like rereading or rewatching, you've been spoiled, and people often reread or rewatch things because you get something out of it. And yes, you can argue like, yeah, but that's different than being spoiled the first time through, to which I would say, sure, but being surprised isn't the only value in a story. There's plenty of other value you can get out of a story. And so while it may be annoying to get spoiled, that's not the same as being ruined.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other end, I think Terra Nullius is one of those few exceptions where I would say, just trust me. I don't want to tell you much of anything about it. Just read it. Trust me. Most of the time, that's not good enough. Most of the time, you need to know something about the story to convince you to read it. You won't usually pick up a book without knowing anything about it. You're like, well, what's it? Is it sci-fi? Well, that's a spoiler. Now you know it's sci-fi. Like there's lines, right? There's gradations, and I think we've gotten to the point where we've turned spoilering into this extreme, like never spoil anything. It's like, well, then you'll never recommend anything because I have to tell you something about the book to get you interested. Like it's a space story about trans aliens who pull off a heist on a space casino. And then you can decide, okay, that sounds like a cool story, or like, no, that's not for me. I've spoiled it by telling you that, but I haven't told you everything about the story, and I don't think I've undermined the enjoyment of the story. By the way, I don't know if that's a story or not. I just made that up.
You could write that.
Maybe I will.
It really drives me crazy when you mention like something like that, or even less than that on Twitter, or something like, I enjoy that this book has such and such representation, and people are like, spoilers. It's like, what the... Like, you can't mention anything about the book. Like, that has no impact on... Never mind. Yeah, that kind of stuff drives me crazy.
And so, everybody's different, and I try to respect that. But at the same time, you can't tell people don't ever say anything about anything, or we'll never share any recommendations with each other. Right.
There is a movie. It is called... It's called Candyman.
Oh, no, you spoiled it! So anyway, yes, I do understand that there are people like Jeff Kanata in the world, and people like Chris in the world who want to know as little as possible, and that's fine. I'm not out to yuck your yum. I'm not out
Jeff.
to like. Well, Jeff's very public about that. That's why he's who I always think about, and I'm not going to try to actively undermine that. I get it, but I also think sometimes, the spoiler police, can be a little too harsh.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, let's talk about the book. I am totally okay with, I definitely won't be impacted at all by us talking about any spoilers in this book that I definitely finished.
Okay, we are definitely in spoilering country. You know who's who in the book now, right?
Yes. I know that
right?
there are amphibious aliens.
I loved that moment because I saw it coming. I'm like, okay, she's leaving out a lot of details. Because when I first started reading it, I was like, okay, is there going to be a time jump? Mm-hmm. Is we've got the nuns and we've got the orphans, and I'm like, is there going to be a portal that takes Jackie into the future where the aliens have showed up? Like, I suspected aliens and an alien invasion, but I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. And so when she reveals, like, oh yeah, the colonists this entire time, they're fish aliens. I was like, okay, didn't see that. Didn't see fish aliens. Like,
well, it was funny how they do like a little reveal at like the end of chapter 8, or maybe the end of chapter 9, where they're talking to somebody and he's like referencing like the old white colonists, and also now these new gray ones. And I was like, wait, what?
Excuse me?
Excuse me? And then literally the next
and
page,
that's great because it's the grays, right?
That's what I thought. I thought it was like the Greys right away. I was like, oh, it's like the Greys. But
it's like the aliens from Close Encounters. Oh my god!
But they're like really referencing them like they're like humany human. Like they felt very human.
Well, she did an artful job. It's like a writing exercise level job of just writing around anything that would reveal that they're not human.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I read passages. I'm like,
really?
yeah, no, that could still be a fish person. Like, she didn't say anything that would be like, wait a minute, a fish person wouldn't be able to do that. Like, it's all just kept very distant and vague. But what's brilliant about her writing, and this is why this should win awards, is that you never feel like it's missing anything when you're reading it. You never feel like, hold on, she's left a big gap that I can't avoid looking at. Why does she never say this word? Why? Like, she did a great job of just navigating a story that felt perfectly normal. But then when you look back later, you're like, oh yeah, she obviously didn't describe their face. Or
my inherent biases throughout the whole book were like, these are white colonists.
Yeah.
These are, when they're talking about their homeland with, like, you know, that's damp and gray and wet and moist. I was like,
that's
England,
they're
talking about
right?
England.
Of
They're
course.
talking about England.
It's damp and
like,
gray.
It all made sense. But,
Yeah.
And so, and I was thinking, all the natives, you know, they're Aboriginal people. They're, you know, I fit in all the regular, you know, biases and things in my brain from, like, history. That made sense. That's exactly what she wanted to happen.
They're assumptions.
All assumptions.
Yeah.
That's exactly what she wanted us to have, these baked in assumptions about the kind of experience that was happening in the story. No surprise there. But then as soon as they said gray, I was like, can you imagine, like, a gray from Close Encounters wearing, like, a Catholic nun's habit? Like, that's hilarious. Of course,
Wait,
it's even
I think
more...
that's a Doctor Who episode, actually, to be honest. Right? Maybe not a gray, but like a fish person, for sure.
Yeah. So, and then when they kind of flipped it on their head, and then when they started talking about the natives and the people who are fleeing, the people who are, like, camping and kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, the people who are fleeing. And they were like, yeah, and most of them are white, and they are out in the sun all the time, and they don't always get burnt because they're so tan, but, like, once in a while, like, their skin starts to blister. And I was like, yeah, this is, like, because, like, all the people of Australia all together, like, all the different races are now being persecuted by this larger entity. And I have to say, it did feel a little on the nose. Like, it felt like there was part of it that felt a little bit too like, okay, like, I get it, like, you know, we're like, this is like shining, like holding up a mirror to the face of, like, you know, the oppression that we confront and deal with in modern society. I don't know if that changes because I haven't finished the book yet. I don't know what the ending of the book is.
It's
I'm
only on the nose.
I'm not
I feel like it's only on the nose because there's a nose.
Yeah.
I feel like what she did really well is to say is to put you in the position, however you're reading it. If you're an indigenous reader, you're going to identify with Jackie, and if you are a white reader, you're going to identify with the settlers, like, just naturally the way you're reading it, and then suddenly going, but you all. Everyone reading this, unless there's a fish alien reading Clergy Coleman, but everyone that we know exists that's reading this is a native. Everybody.
But what I'm saying is that if you're, like, a decent person, like, you shouldn't be having, like, an aha moment from this. Like, this shouldn't be like, oh, now you're having, like, a realization of what it feels like to be oppressed. Like,
I don't know if I agree with that, because you can be decent and still be thinking, oh, that's an experience I haven't had.
Right.
And this is an experience that I could have had. Mm-hmm. And you could be perfectly decent and be reading a story about Australian colonization. You would have empathy if you're a decent person, but you wouldn't assume that you would have that experience. And what she did when she revealed it was aliens is you're like, oh, the person I was empathizing with actually could be me. Mm-hmm. And that's different. That is substantively different to me.
Yeah. I guess it didn't make me feel that way, and I don't know why. I think maybe, I don't know why. Yeah. That's interesting. I get that perspective for sure.
Because
And
I also
wanna-
get what you're saying, which is like, if you're a decent person, you shouldn't be like, oh crap, I guess it's not okay to hate the natives, right? Like, I totally get that. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
That should not be
simplistic,
your
but
revelation.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. I want to apologize to Tazzy Dave because I accidentally used his turn of phrase when I said holding up a mirror, because I had read his passage earlier.
Okay.
On
Yeah,
this
just
thread.
credit.
So I want
Tassie
to give
Dave,
credit where
yeah.
credit is due. He was like, the flip isn't that it's just aliens. The flip is that it's us that are oppressed, invaded peoples. It's holding a mirror to us in society to think about what our ancestors did and what we can do to help rectify the continuing problems.
I think one of the things that I loved about it too is that what it says is there really isn't a difference between you other than your lived experience and your culture. You are all humans. And
Right.
if you were all put in the same lived experience and culture, you would act fairly similarly and have similar reactions. And I think that's a tough argument to make without straying into, but you're minimizing or doing this if you're just trying to make it. But what she did was like, yeah, but if aliens came and enslaved us all, we'd all have fairly similar lived experiences, and the aliens would not see us as any different.
You know, I have to say there was one kind of moment that I had that I think will stick with me, and that's when they're talking about how the colonizers, the settlers rather, say that, you know, don't see humans as being, they see them as animals. You know, they see them as basically like barely a step above livestock.
Right.
And I was like, that's crazy. Like, they had technology, like we had technology, we had like, you know, like buildings and tools and weapons and all this stuff. And then I was like, but man, that's exactly what happened to every native society, every place that was conquered, you know, slaves.
Every
in the United
invaded
States, slaves
society
around the world
was minimized, and any
made to be
invaded
animals,
society
you know?
that was significantly conquered was conquered because it was at a technological disadvantage, not
Right.
because the people were in any way worse off, but they had technology. They just didn't quite hadn't got to the same technology. In fact, I kept thinking while I was reading this, is like, we're going to think Australia, obviously. We're also going to think about America.
Yeah.
We're going to think about New Zealand. We're going to think about places like that. But this happened to Britain,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
right? The Celts,
yeah.
the Celts
The
were
Romans.
driven away, not by the Romans, by
Not
the
by the
Anglo-Saxons. The Romans came in and included Britain in the empire.
Tom, you know where I learned about this actually?
Where?
This fantastic book called Project Vera that I just read recently, where they talk about how, like, you know, societies that are peaceful don't need to build up their technology as much because, you know, I don't know. I mean, you'd probably be better at explaining it. I know that you were.
Societies
interested
that
in
are
subject
peaceful
matter.
may not be driven to build up their technology because they don't need to compete.
Right, because they don't
Yeah.
need to compete.
And
then once you
Rome
introduce-
Rome
yeah.
included Britain, but the Anglo-Saxons murdered them and drove them out to where there were no Celts in England. And the Celts, in that case, held out in the mountains in Wales, north of the Wall in Scotland. But that culture changed. That culture stopped being British, stopped being Celtic, and started being English. And the English were dismissive of Celts. And Celts were lower in society. And then the Normans came in and did the same thing. And they're like, Angles and Saxons, barely animals. Like, all right,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
You know, we'll let them work the land. And so I'm not trying to equate or excuse when I say that. I'm saying, like, this is human history. And it happens frequently in many places around the world in varying levels. And so it's quite likely that if an alien race came in and its technology was significantly advanced, that the same thing would happen again to us, to all of us.
Great. Well, I haven't finished. Is there anything more that you want to discuss about the ending? I don't know what happens.
Not really, honestly. I mean, the ending is kind of a fantastic last stand kind of shootout at the OK Corral kind of ending. You get a lot more about, the alien that turns against his own people because
Johnny Starr.
because he disagrees with what they're doing, and he was an oppressed class, not an oppressed people, but an oppressed class because he was considered a criminal because he just wanted to be separate. I thought that was a really interesting characterization of that person, and very reflective of certain historical characters here as well. But I just really, really love this idea that we really if we respect each other for our differences, like, oh, you've had a different experience than me, and so I shouldn't assume that what I've experienced is exactly the same as you, but fundamentally we're both human, that we get along a lot better than if we say, you are so different from me, therefore you are worse, better, etc. And I feel like that's a great lesson that is not the first book to teach it, but well taught.
Good. Well, I'm excited to wrap it up. I have to say the transition from what the book started as to what it turned into, I would say, I think there's some conversation happening about whether it was jarring of a transition. I felt it was a little bit jarring, but I was also waiting for it. I was expecting it to come.
I was excited for it.
I
was excited that I had guessed close, but not exactly right.
I tried not to guess anything, so I was like pretty unprepared.
I was definitely trying to guess. I was like, okay, it's got to be aliens, but are the settlers working for the aliens? Are we going to have a time jump? Or are they I kept changing my guess. And when it finally came, also, I think she did a great job of describing the alien world once we get to it. And, the fact that it was entirely water based, not road based, and all of that. I thought that was I actually want to find out more about that alien world and what happens there too.
I want to know if the nun gets it in the end or not, because I hate her.
She gets it in it.
She gets it in the end. See, that's
no, that's not a spoiler. I'm just
totally happy with.
I'm just saying, I hope she does as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope she does. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our episode. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. Our show is currently entirely funded by you, our patrons. Thank you so much if you help back our show. If you want to learn more, you can head over to patreon.com/swordandlaser.
You can also support the show by buying books through our links. You can find links to the books we talk about and some of our favorites, including links to bookshop.org now at swordandlaser.com/picks.
Send us an email, feedback@swordandlaser.com. You can also send us a message on Instagram or Twitter @swordandlaser. And all of our discussions happen over on goodreads.com/swordandlaser. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Time for Spoopy October.
Spoopy.